Hi guys, my name is Tobias and I'm an economist and engineer. Um, and I'd like to talk about a stable asset backed by nature today. And in order to explain it well, I will dive a bit into money, what it's backed by, and how blockchain technology enables it to be backed by actually nature. If there's one thing that you take out of this talk today, it would be that money can be a bit more friendly if it would be backed by money. And that money, how it's designed currently, is not that friendly, especially to the environment. And that blockchain technology and stablecoins actually make it possible to implement money backed by nature, by something more friendly to our planet. Let me dive into the history of money creation. So, very early on, humans have been trading peer to peer before using simple objects such as seashells to facilitate trade and enable the store of value. A bit later on, they have been using gold coins or silver coins made out of actually gold or silver. And then again, a bit later on, humans invented paper money um, not that long ago. And initially, paper money was backed one to one by a commodity, for example, gold or silver, and it was also exchangeable against that commodity. So it was actually backed by something. Until in someone in the 1970s, I think President Nixon back then ended the gold standard for the US dollar. And since then, central banks have been able to print money more freely, which also meant that government have made use of that and have taken on more and more debt because money is usually created by debt, by someone taking on debt. And that's also the backing of money today. If you imagine money in the past being backed by gold or silver, today money would be backed by debt. And the repayment of the debt initially leads to economic growth because that economic growth is necessary to repay the debt and for that money to remain valuable and functional. But there's a problem when money is backed by debt and economic growth because what Charles Eisenstein, a philosopher working on regenerative economics, observed that whatever backs money, people tend to make more of it. So when seashells were a form of money, people could collect seashells because it was valuable. When money was backed by gold, people have been digging up gold like crazy because it was valuable. And now people obviously also want more money, more and more money, which means that usually economies take on more and more debt, and debt, and debt, and governments take on more debt, and debt, and debt. But that can become unhealthy and unsustainable and can lead economies into real trouble. And it's also not good for the environment because environmental costs are usually not priced into our modern Western economies, at least. So when you understand this dynamic, what money right now actually is, the question arises: why not back money with something more sustainable, something that the world and people need more of? For example, clean forests or biodiverse and protected oceans. And this is a very theoretical concept, which would be hard to execute. But since blockchain technology, where people have created their own forms of money, this actually has become possible. And that's what we will be looking into right now. Stablecoins is a relatively new form of money on blockchain technology, and there are broadly two categories. One is fiat-backed stablecoins, where someone, as an example, deposits €1 in a bank account, in a custody bank account, and gets a digital representation of that €1 in the bank account on the blockchain, which is the stablecoin. Then there's also the second area where stablecoins are not backed by fiat money, but backed by crypto assets, which are usually volatile, and which means they vary in their value. So you need to incorporate a safety buffer into the money creation. So someone can, for example, lock up 1.5 euro worth of Ether and then borrow a 1 euro stable coin position against it. That's how, for example, MakerDAI works, or a lot of other famous decentralized stablecoin protocols like Liquidity. And that mechanism where someone posts an asset and borrows something against it, in this case, the stable coin, the stable side of the loan, it's called a collateral debt position, a well-known concept out of finance, and also all the traditional forms of money, whether backed by gold, whether backed by debt, is a collateral debt position. Yeah, and now this alone doesn't make money better from an economic perspective. It digitizes it, which has some usability and trust benefits. But there's also another asset class on blockchains in the area of regenerative finance called digital environmental assets, where people generally seek to build digital representations on the blockchain of the value of nature, or of things that have a positive impact on nature. And right now, these are usually carbon credits, which companies usually have to buy as a right for pollution. And you get them from protected forests, or, for example, from closed down oil wells. There's also tokens that represent tons of cleaned up plastic pollution, either on land or from oceans. And I hope that in the future, there will also be direct digital ownership representations of, for example, forests and oceans. And then pieces of land that are beneficiary to nature um, would be measurable, priceable, and tradable. And data can also be used to actually back money with, at least as first experimental versions. And this is exactly what we are right now working on at Mentor Labs. We call it Refi Stable Asset as a project name right now, where instead of fiat money or Ether as collateral, someone can post regenerative financial assets, for example, carbon credits in the beginning, or anything else that's yet a bit to determine, and then borrow the stable asset portion of it against it. And to what that would lead, or how that would have positive impact, is when the stable coin gets demanded and used, there's also more demand for the collateral assets. So, for example, in the case of MakerDAI, a lot of people request MakerDAI, and then obviously the demand for Ethereum is there, and we hope, or we imagine, that form of money can actually have a positive impact and different dynamics than traditional money has today. And the time, unfortunately, does not permit diving deep into the assets, but I wrote up a couple of blog posts diving into the research, diving into the technology of the refi stable assets, and also a bit more in the economic backgrounds, which can be found on the Mental Protocol blog on mirror.xyz. Coming back to the one thing that I'd like you to remember from this talk is that nature-backed money can be a more friendly version of money to humans in our planet if we change the mechanism that money gets created a bit. Blockchain technology and stablecoins actually make it possible for the first time. All right, thank you very much for your time, for listening. You can reach me with questions, comments, anything on Twitter. In the lower left, there's my Twitter handle. And at Mentor Labs, I will be heading into a sabbatical, so I won't be reachable there. But Roman Krössmann, who is our research lead, is working on the refi project, and you can reach out to him anytime. There's his email address in the lower right. And also, if you want to learn more, as I said, the Mentor Protocol blog or the Mentor Labs website would be a good place to start.